Hi, everybody. Welcome to the steering committee for the baseline protocol. This is September the 14th, 2020, and we have quite a few people on the call already, 20 participants. I see Sam Stokes, I see TJ Chomlusky, I see Vijay Minchalski, I see Kyle Thomas, Gavin, Bill, Daniel, Devin, some newcomers here. Andrew Thurman, Andreas Freund, and many others. A nice Frank, and we've got Jimmy Lentz and Nick Kritikos. So we have a lot to cover today, and one thing that I'm hoping that everybody was able to get to the minutes or the agenda for this week. You'll find that in the repo, the agenda issue for the repo, please call out in chat if you need the link to that. You'll see that there's only one, and there's a reason for that. And I'll get into that in a few minutes. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to go over today. First is 1, 2, 4. We have a proposal that we will bring to the Project Governance Board regarding merging the Tsc meetings that are usually every other Thursday and the SSC meetings, which are every other Monday, including today, into one meeting, and using the Thursday meetings for the standards working group, the TC, as we will call it. And we'll discuss why that's called that in a minute, that Anais and others are organizing. So that would become a working meeting, and we would just have the TSC. The TSC's job is really governance, and there's just not a lot of governing because the maintainers are pretty well behaved and we don't have a lot of problems. So we are, this call has been very active, and it's going to become even more important as we go forward, as we might as well all be here together and just consolidate meetings a little bit. So I'll go into that a little bit. Also, there's an announcement that's coming out with Chainlink, which should be, that's what I was working on just as we were starting, going to approve a Medium article. For those of you on the TSC, you should have seen an email from me last week making sure that there was no dissent on us publishing that on our publication. It will be penned by our very own Johan Aid from Chainlink. And it's really their kind of shot across the bow about how to work with Chainlink and in a baseline environment. Then yeah, there's a technical committee announcement that we'll discuss, similar with relation to what I was just mentioning from the meetings. There's elections. We need to talk about elections, and I have a very specific set of things for everyone to discuss. And then onto our normal programming, which is prioritizing the roadmap and discussing what we are doing next. And specifically, we'll do that last. And so it'd be great if everybody could be thinking as we are discussing these other matters about, if you haven't already, because I remember putting in the Slack a call to action to come in prepared with what are you wanting to accomplish next. And this will be just a discussion about what our big tentpole items should be going forward. So that's it. Those are the agenda items. I will ask, are there any other items that people want to bring up? All right. So on the TSC, SSC, SCTC proposal, if you go into the, and let me see if I can bring it up here on screen. Yeah, I'll share screen. And this is the elections stuff. We'll talk about that in a second. Regular meeting agendas. And here we are on today, 14th of September. Now, actually, I'm going to go back to the Tsc meeting minutes. So this is a little bit involved, and I want everybody to really get it. And please, this would be a great time to have some discussions about it. So the SSC shall be renamed to the SC Steering Committee. There's some history here that probably needs to be communicated. The OASIS organization has a thing called the TC. Historically, OASIS has been a open standards body, and the TC, although if we could go back in time and call that the Standards Committee, the SC, then everything would be a little easier to understand, but they call them TCs, and the TCs are usually the standards writers. We, as a both open source and open standards body, we have a technical steering committee, as you know, and we've got a roadmap of projects that the steering committee is proposing and constantly editing. And then we have of course, the governing group, the technical steering committee, which is the 11-member body we will be electing at the end of this month. So all of that is a little confusing. It's a lot of, from my perspective, it's a little too many things. So now that we are into building the standards, thanks to the successful release of v0.1 of the core and the BRI1 reference implementation, we have something to work on. And that's going to be heavily what we'll be about going forward. So that should be called the TC, the Technical Committee. And there's one particular restriction, only one. Participation in that can only be done by people who have signed the ICLA or the ECLA, the contributor license agreement. And you do that by doing a pull request into the repo and having that merged to main. When you do that, in the process of it, if you haven't done this before, you will get the opportunity to click through that license. And that's important for lots of reasons. Most simplest one being intellectual property protection and certificate of originality in general is important to establish, so that it can never be said going forward that the standard or any of the components or any of the articulation of that standard was taken from some other thing that has intellectual property on it. And this is a very old and very well-worn issue in the open source community and open standards. So there will be, the meetings will be restricted, and the contribution will be restricted to people who have signed that ICLA. Does that make sense? I'm looking over here and watching for not Ed Bob's. All right.
And how do you find the ICLA to sign it if you want to participate?
Great question. The answer is if you do a pull request into the /baseline repo, it will pop. If you're a company that's coming in as a sponsor, you'll be asked to sign the ECLA, which basically covers your company. And if you're, excuse me, and if you're a maintainer if you're a maintainer, you're already doing pull requests. And if you're a technical steering committee member, that's one place where I want to make sure we always are vigilant and make sure that technically you could get on the TSC, be elected, and not have done a pull request, but or not signed the ICLA, but I'll just make sure that everybody on the TSC does get that when we elect them all. So that should
Why don't you just
cover.
email out all the ICLA to all just to everybody who thinks that needs to do that, and then either DocuSign or Google Form, and then be done with it.
That's not a bad idea, Andreas. I will. Let me take a note.
Because people who want to participate, they will be motivated to sign it. Otherwise, you got to wait till there is an actual reason for a pull request, right? Which might time conflict with the with meetings, etc., and that becomes then really annoying. I'm just saying that diff, for example, just like, you just request it, and there's on the repo, there's a place you click on it, it pops, and then you can just sign it and be done with it.
Yeah, let me go check that out. I'm not sure if Jory's on the call. I'm looking in.
John, Kevin Cunningham, as a resident lawyer, I'm happy to take on that role, do the clearing up if that's helpful. Let me know.
Gavin, you made my day. I will circle back with you if you don't get a ping from me on Slack today. Ping me back, okay?
I will. Cool.
Love to have a buddy on this. By the way, the Oasis lawyer, Jamie, is fantastic. Really like working with him. Okay, so that's not a bad idea. We'll proceed with that. And by the way, hold that thought a bit because when we talk about elections, that exact matter will come back up again. Excuse me. So, yeah, please take a look at this. If you haven't already, I'll copy this into the chat so you have an easier way of getting it. If I can find the chat somewhere. There it is. All right. Okay, so yeah, so that's an important set of information to really understand. Does anybody have any questions so far on this? This is apparently the month to really get organized. So I'm feeling like October is just going to be a giant leaps forward with all the energy that's starting to build up. But yeah, we do have some organizing to do. So this meeting in the last TSC was also very much an organizing meeting. So apologies to folks who wanted more sizzle today. Okay, so that's let me ask again. Questions? Begging you. Just one question, please. Somebody. There's nothing worse than running a meeting and having no questions.
Can you go over the meeting schedule and intent again? Because we're combining the TSC, the SSC, and all of that. And just want to make sure everyone's clear.
So there will be this is my best attempt at making this clean and simple. Mondays, every other Monday at 11 a.m. right now, continuing from today, there will be a steering committee meeting. It'll be composed of both the road mapping stuff that we do on the SSC, have done on the SSC meetings up until now, plus any TSC, technical steering committee governance matters that might need to come up. So we'll start off the meeting by saying, TSC, maintainers, do you have any issues for the TSC? If I'm doing my job right, assuming I continue to get to have my job after the elections, then or the convener will have gone ahead and made sure that there are issues or are not issues, put those on the agenda, and there may be nothing for the TSC, at which point we'll just say that that's not part of the agenda on this coming Monday because there's no issues. If there are issues, then we'll cover them. If there are lots of issues, we'll have a special meeting just to give the appropriate amount of time. Traditionally, what we've learned over the last 6 months is that there really the business of the TSC can be covered in about 10 minutes or less. Now, so that's the and we'll just call that whole thing the steering committee meeting, right? And so there'll be two groups in that, everybody here, and some of you on this call will be TSC members. And so if there needs to be a vote, we'll tally it up, and I'm going to hazard a guess that it won't be too difficult to deal with that on the call, right? We'll just be able to say, oh yeah, TSC members, please indicate your assent or dissent. So where there are governance matters, that's what we'll do, but we'll do that right here on this meeting. So people are mentioning to me that they're getting so many videos out there because we do these on the open and we put them on YouTube, and people actually watch them. They're like, I want to watch all the videos, but there's a lot. So this would be one fewer video to watch. So that's basically it. Separately from that, Anais has the Thursday 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern time slot now for, if we do this, for the technical committee, which would be the standards writers. And that would be a working session with people that are writing the standards. And anybody can get into that as long as they've signed the ICLA. And that's it.
And only those that are going to the TC need to sign the ICLA.
That is correct. Nobody on this call, nobody on the SC, or what we've called the SSC. I'm proposing that we just call it the steering committee to get rid of the standards steering committee or the specifications steering committee, because it's too confusing, right? It's like SSC, TC, so there's the steering committee, which is us. And some of us on that are TSC governance board members that are elected. And then there's the TC, which is the standards group. And yeah, the SSC or the SC don't need to sign the ICLA. They can contribute to the roadmap repo without having to sign that. And that's all fine. They're just kind of standing up and saying, hey, I'm accountable for this piece of work, no matter who does it.
And you don't get a vote on voting matters.
Yeah, SSC don't, the steering committee folks, if you're not on the TSC, you don't have a vote for that. And
cool, thank you.
Okay. Any comments or questions? I will close the matter if that's it. All right. That's what we will propose to the project governance board. And if I need to get one more TSC member to vote assent or dissent on that, and we will have the quorum required, or the consensus required to move forward with that. And I'm wrangling that last vote right now. I'd say that I'm pretty confident that we will get that approved, and that means that the next SSC meeting will be a SC meeting, and we'll all be together. Okay. Another thing, one last thing about this is that the TC meeting, or the technical committee, the standards group, will be part of the maintainers. So maintainers have been technical contributors primarily, and now we're in order to not have yet another repo with specifications and yet another group to manage. Maintainers will be maintainers whether they're working on specs or they're working on code. The only risk there, and we've discussed it with the PGB, is that we find writers of standards starting to approve code submissions when they shouldn't be. But I really don't anticipate that to be a problem, and we can catch it fast. All good? Maintainers, you're good with that?
Yeah, if you see someone who shouldn't be approving, you just add, you can just add someone else in, so that assures that there's no, and you restrict the merge rights to admins.
Yes, and
For the
it's
code, that's it.
it turns out that with this, it makes a lot of sense that we have a 3-party approval process, because that reduces the problem. Okay, that's it. And we did this. We did this quick sketch, so you can look at that in the docs as well. That, you know, in the repo we have code. In the code we have the core interfaces, the core of the protocol, and we have baseline reference implementations, BRI1, which was delivered by Kyle and Karthik and Nethermind and other folks. BRI2, I already know of one group that wants to be, you know, get in there and create another BRI. BRI3, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have demos of various kinds and packages underneath there. And for example, in the Google Sheets demo, which relies on BRI1, you have they defined an interface for locking the UI of a baseline record. So you can't, for example, easily change a Google Sheets row if it's been baselined. That, as an example, could find its way up into the core packages of the BRI. It could also inform how we do the core interfaces. And then over here in the other part of the repo, it can inform the standards, may implement locking in such a way. Right. So if the maintainers are all together, they can manage that repo together, and there'll be code that is in the form of code, and there's docs that are in the form of .md files, and all of that is being managed by pull request. Sound good? Hey, by the way, can you guys hear my son talking in the background?
No.
Oh, I love it. NVIDIA RTX voice. I'm going to be like a salesman for that thing. It's crazy. You can sit there and go, can't hear me, right? Can't hear my hands clapping. It's the most amazing thing. All right.
Setup, John, you should spend 30 seconds just showing people the setup that you have. It is so amazing.
Yeah.
AV nerd.
I've become an AV nerd in my quarantine, my state of quarantine. So all started with trying to get my son's talking in the other room out of my audio. So Chainlink announce. Okay, so we discussed that. Is anybody from Chainlink on the call? I know that they're working really hard right now and they're getting, so there will be some reporting this afternoon, as I understand it, and there will be a blog entry on their use. So everybody go out and support our friends over there and give them some amplification if you can on your social networks. The story is basically 2 use cases where using a Chainlink Oracle would help with non-determinism in the functions of a particular workflow. So think about things like weather lookups and time lookups, where your machine and my machine have to look up and get the same value into the parameter. That's what, it's a good use of an Oracle. And they're proposing a couple of use cases to the community, to their community and others, to build those. I think it's a pretty interesting piece of work. It was very well written by their team. Technical committee announcement. Yeah. Anais, do you have anything you'd like to bring up here?
Tomorrow, I think most people on the call may have received the invitation for the working session to discuss issue 115 regarding the proposed scope for the OSI standard covering protocol, API, and DLT requirements as well. So this will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So for those who would like to join, if you have not received the invite, feel free to reach out on Slack and I will add you. Oh, it might not be 115. One moment. Yep, it is 115.
There it is.
Yes.
A quick question: do we have any contributors from Asia?
From Asia, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, because you're in a, you know, if you're like in Hong Kong, then this is like 1 a.m. in the morning. So I mean, as long as we don't have anyone, but I think it's not a pressing issue, but I would like to just bring it up to say that we need to be mindful of the fact that the world does not revolve around the Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, I'm well aware. I'm based in London, so it's actually 3 p.m. my time. But
right.
yeah, if there is anybody, yeah.
Or let me put it this way, the Northern Hemisphere
yes, yeah.
centric. I just want to make sure that we're you know, maximizing the reach, and by doing that, we're excluding like 60% of the world population.
Yes, you're definitely right. Are you aware of anybody?
No, I'm not. Hence my question, and I
okay.
preface that it's probably not pressing and urgent, but you know, it's like in case there are, in case people are interested.
Yep.
I just want to make sure.
So I'm glad you brought it up. Let me reprise something from long ago that we established early on. That I'll just timely to say here. Anybody who's convening meetings, it is their responsibility, whether it's myself or someone else, Anais, the maintainers, Sam, to keep an eye on inclusiveness, geographically and everything else, and attenuate meetings or establish moving meetings. It's always, all other things being equal, spherical planet problems aside, having a single time that everybody can count on is useful. So changing it up tends to also have impacts on participation rates and that sort of thing. People get confused. So simpler is the better. But as you say, yeah, if we have folks who have to get up at 1 a.m. every time, that's not very nice to them. So it's an art form. I've been doing that a long time. We, as you probably know, it took us quite a bit of time to get to these the time frames that we have right now. Is never optimal for somebody, but yeah. So I'm sure Anaïs, you're well advised that you can change those meeting times up, and that actually brings a question: do you intend to use the Thursday 11 a.m. or do you want to do those Tuesdays instead?
No,
I can deprecate the Thursday 11 a.m. altogether.
I think we can discuss and ask around tomorrow just to be on the safe side, but there should not be any problem with Thursdays because those meetings were already planned and scheduled. The frequency was well established. This is just until we get confirmation from that we are shifting and combining the steering committees into one meeting. Otherwise, I think Thursday should be okay, but we can ask tomorrow to the wider group, just to confirm.
Right on. Okay, does that sound good? All right, so anybody that wants to get involved with standards writing, get that ICLA signed. As Andreas and Gavin mentioned, we might be able to get that so you don't have to do a pull request. But that leads to the next really important thing, which is elections. One thing that does require an ICLA or does require a pull request right now under our current charter is you have to have submitted something to the repo to be a contributor, have it merged, and then you get to vote for the technical steering committee, which we are doing right this month. And I'm going to bring that up. Sorry, I had this teed up and then I had too many windows and it got confusing. There it is. So here's the link to the current list of candidates. And to nominate a person, either add a comment here or you can send me a note. And here's the current list. Let me try and expand that. Can folks see it okay? So we have Hudson Jameson, Kyle Thomas, Shepment, Nate McCurvey, Connor Svensson, yours truly, Eric Breivik, who is now at Definity, by the way, Karthik Solapuram, Brian Chamberlain, Sam Stokes, David Meckler, and Anaiso Frank. Those are the current candidates. That makes it an interesting contest because it's not, there are more, I think that's, yeah, it's 12, right? It starts at 2. So 12 candidates, 11 positions. So there's already one interesting choice. We can't just kind of vote them all in. I am constructing the voting system now, and it will allow us to each voter to vote in the 11 members and determine who wants to be the chair or who gets to be the chair. And as I said, the only way you get a vote is by contributing to the repo. That was in the charter. We may go into we may have a resolution in the next period, from September of this year, October of this year to the next voting period in September of next year, where we change that up. We could change the rules, but changing the rules right now just doesn't seem right. So there's a lot of contributors to the community that aren't necessarily doing pull requests. For now, we just have to, Sam Stokes and I and others will work really hard to get anybody loaded up with at least one pull request who's legitimately doing work. I mean, there's really good examples of this. Avia Craft, for example, who does so much work for the community, hasn't done a pull request. We're gonna make sure she does so she gets a vote. Sam, would you like to say a few words about this?
Sure. From the maintainer side, I think one of the ways we're going to try to start making it easier for people to contribute is every week at our maintainers meeting, try to do a better job of brainstorming and creating issues and tagging them as like good first issue is one of our tags. So creating new issues with that tag so people can more easily find ways to contribute and making those issues kind of bite-sized chunks instead of large projects. I think up until now, we've done a decent job of creating issues that capture our own work that the maintainers team is working on, but haven't done such a great job of making it easy for other people to find out where they can contribute. So yeah, that's one way we plan on improving.
It's awesome. Do you have a good example of a place that somebody could contribute right now? So READMEs are a good place. There's always work to be done on explaining things. What are your thoughts there? Yeah,
READMEs are always good. I know one that we need to create probably is now that the baseline protocol version 1 NPM packages have been created. I think some of the previous demos besides the VRI 1, maybe Radish 34 would be a good one where somebody could go through that implementation and import the new baseline protocol packages. So it'd be a bit of refactoring, but it wouldn't be creating a whole new project. And then maybe even smaller issues than that we could create is just import one package at a time. So it could be a series of steps refactoring that demo, and that could help somebody get familiar with the new packages, and it'd be great if they had some feedback when they were going through that work of maybe ways we could improve the protocol packages.
Right on. So, and we'll go into that. That's a good segue into the fun stuff, going into road mapping. So I'll ask, is all this boring stuff all sorted for everybody? Any questions? Anyone? Okay, so let's get on to the fun stuff and have a good discussion. Everybody got their discussion caps on. We're gonna talk about some stuff here. So we have these are the if anybody remembers, these are the projects in our roadmap at the highest level. We've been working on these for a long time: tools, engineering priorities, security, marketing, comms. There's all sorts of stuff going on here. I thought that we'd go right down. And this would be a good place for people to chime in where they have burning topics. So we have no current epics in the tools project right now. So that's one place where the question comes, what needs to happen there? Hey, Kyle, I wonder if you have some thoughts about tools, engineering priorities, and
Sure.
demos.
In terms of engineering priorities, I think the persistence package and getting some of the initial functionality into that package is pretty important. Maybe I can take on myself too. Is there anything really documented into this? Yeah, there is. Okay.
So the 7 things that were in the big protocol abstraction and generalization, I think almost all of them have been completed and put to bed, except researching binary data encoders for baseline messages.
Yep. So there's been a few additional implementations. Like there's a Golang implementation of the message format, and there's a .NET version that we've been working on. I think we could bubble those up and look at those in the context of TypeScript, and then say, well, how can we actually use like protocol buffers or something instead here? So I can maybe update the GitHub issue there, and also I think I'll maybe make a new issue here, and sign it to me for the persistence package. There's just some learning I think that I can share around that in terms of what I think some of the entry level or like initial methods that we need to define in there might be. So I can update those 2 issues. In terms of tools, is there anything defined under there yet?
No, we don't have anything in tools right now, and it's fine. I mean, these project buckets are there for convenience, and
sure.
So I think like if we had truffle tools, right, we might put tools like that in here. And truffle is part of the community, so that would be if we had the truffle team on today.
We added truffle. We're actually using truffle.
Oh, sure, we're using truffle, but like if we wanted to create a truffle.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Like like some packaging. Yeah. So I can take a look at. I can collect my thoughts around that and update GitHub. But if you wouldn't mind adding a persistence issue under engineering priorities and assigning it to me, I can take a look and fill that out.
All right. Let me quickly see if we've got that in the persistence. I thought we had a persistence in there. Nope. Okay, yeah, so that needs to be, and I know you've got engineering stuff in the baseline repo on this, so you can connect it to that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Now the question is, do you want that in engineering priorities? Sometimes I wonder if there isn't a little redundancy between key features and components. We've got integrations, key features and components, POCs and demos. And this is the specs, the standards teams bucket.
Do we just make do we just make engineering priorities as a way to track the first release? Do you remember anything around that?
I think that might have been why we did it, right? Just to make sure.
I think so. Yeah. I think that's why we made it. So yeah, I think it would make sense to put it under features, I guess, and components.
All right, so I'll take that offline.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anybody have some thoughts about this? I mean, what is anybody out there
Persistence
working?
is a feature.
Yeah.
Right. It's a characteristic of something. So I would, just from a logical point of view, I would put that as under key features and components. Under engineering priorities would be how to implement persistence.
I think engineering priorities is sort of just a placeholder for
the
next release.
Right. I would put that under key features.
Yeah, agreed.
I'll just call this urgent. Really. I'll rename this to release priorities, or upcoming release.
We could also call it
Alexa,
ODOT. We could call it ODOT. we could call it O.1 and just mark it done, and then they can make a new one. Anyway, that's just an idea too.
Hold on for a second.
John's Alexa's going nuts now.
Sorry, that was my timer to start folding the sourdough.
And I have to text my wife not to play kids' music on my den speaker. Hold on for a second. I don't know if you heard that, but
we can't hear it.
We can't hear it. It's brilliant.
Pretty good.
Brilliant. But love it.
Yeah, just as that was happening, I'm hearing skip to my loo. I'm like, what?
Talk about work-life balance.
It's pretty funny, actually. You didn't hear that. That's awesome. Okay, so I think there's the upcoming release. We'll take that offline, but Kyle, we'll clean that up and give you and get you an epic in there. Okay. And do other folks have thoughts about upcoming releases? Where do we go from here on the we've got v0.1. v0.1 is not v1. What needs to happen next? Yeah, I'll give you a hint. I mean, like that idea of a baseline record being locked. That's something that LimeChain built, right, for the demo. Does that need to get escalated to
persistence concern as well? I would cover it in that persistence epic.
Okay. So locking. Should there
as well as like a common way to make use of, for example, SAP standard messaging, for example, so we can show feedback on the user on the UI without any custom work. It's sort of high priority.
That sounds pretty interesting. All right, so we have what else is glaringly missing in the if you let's just think about what everybody on this call that I can see has stuff they want to do. And David, I hear you're working on Besu and Quorum.
Yes.
I know you're probably pretty interested in the RPC work.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. So, and we can take that offline as well. Start. I know Sam is quite interested in working with you on making sure that that Quorum is well equipped to baseline. So you might
So
want to
one other thing is sort of like integration of DIDs and VCs into that, because if you have a final agreement and you want to make that legally actionable, right? So there's an invoice has been finalized, etc. You know, how do you get to that, right? How do you create a verifiable credential that is the equivalent of a you know of an order, etc. that has been signed by both, that actually would stand up in court in case there is a challenge, right? So I mean, besides having a human readable format, but having something that is in the form of a claim. So I think there's some work also in the standards body around what type of how can you port the blockchain world into the real world, where people need to look at things, and where you have acceptance by cores of digital signatures, but they need to be able to relate it to something that exists, that is human readable.
I think you could write something up on that. But
Huh?
Yeah, I just want to chime in. It's been a while since I was last on a call like this.
Hey,
but I would certainly second what Andreas just said. You know, identity, the whole, not only identity but authorization, credentialing, and all these things are certainly a big step up, right, to bring this to reality.
Right on. So that's one thing. And maybe Andreas, maybe you could do a write up, and we could take that offline as well. Throw an epic in there if you want.
Under where would we put that?
There is an epic, I think, for related to that. Actually, there may be two.
Maybe under key features and components.
Yeah, like jumping in here. I know we spoke about not this exact thing, but there was the global phone book epic, something along those lines.
Right, which effectively is implemented. Kyle, wouldn't you agree? It's just we simply need to, and that actually could be a piece of work for somebody, is to just stand that thing up, right?
Yeah.
To say, hey, you know what? We're going to stand up the global baselining phone book on the Ethereum network.
Yeah, but with identity, we mean much more than looking people up, right? So it's really about the verifiable credential aspect that makes so much business sense to standardize with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there are definitely two relevant issues for this. So number 49, corporate identity, and number 50, identity and legal. So there may be some overlap. So it could be interesting to see what has been done or who is owning those. If they're on the call, maybe they can.
So I can do a write up for verifiable credentials, because that's really missing.
I think there's a couple. Yeah, I think there's a few little tiny things that we should add before we deploy it. But it probably isn't a terrible amount of work.
So there's deployability, as Kyle's mentioning, in terms of the fact that we have the contract for the 1820 that is what we call the why am I going up on the name? The
org registry.
The org registry. Thank you. But then there's also, and if you're forming your own little org registry between companies you know very well, and you're setting that work group up, then you don't really need, corporate identity is less of a
the org registry and the work group are separate for reasons of anonymity on the blockchain.
Oh yeah, that's all well documented. And by the way, anybody who hasn't seen the 4 or 5 videos that we have on the website, go to baseline-protocol.org, and you'll find 5 videos that Kyle did, and Sam and some others, those of us who are kind of giving questions. We'll walk through all of that stuff. They're nice little videos. And so the structure of that makes it so that you're not giving away information about you or your relationships on the mainnet, which is good. But if you had Kyle, a giant phone book full of companies. You also need to then know that those companies are registered in that phone book accurately and verifiably, and that you're not sending notes, you're not sending messages to a company that you thought it was one company and it's actually another company.
Yep.
So that's a whole different kettle of fish.
We just need to add the credential to the phone book. There's just there's one more field that or two that we need to probably add.
Aha! I spy with my little eye a pull request opportunity for some lucky developer out there to pitch in and get a vote. So anybody out there watching this video, talk to Kyle Thomas and see how you can add a chapter to the book of baselining. Okay.
I can hear Andreas is typing right now.
He's already writing the code. That's awesome. Okay, and there are a number of other folks in our community that are very interested in identity. Of course, there's there's Reuven Heck from Consensus. There's a whole identity team here at Consensus. There's a group at Ernst & Young very interested in this. Karthik Solapuram is interested in this. Bill Gleim is interested in this. So
can we think about not merging, but incorporating DIF into this? There's a whole standards group around credentials and their presentation, because
do you reckon it's time for us to just form a strike team on this matter and get it done? Is it time?
Yeah, I mean, you just need someone to. I'm happy to contribute, but I'm not going to organize it.
Yeah, I get it. All right, so I'm going to add an agenda item and see if we can cook up a proposal just like an action plan between now and the next SSC, and then we can get everybody together. So maybe what we can do right now or right after the call, we'll set up a identity task force and see if we can get some people on the Slack and see if people start getting conversations about that. As an example of the successful one of those, EDI, the EDI conversation has been active for months. It's a really hard conversation, and it's a whole piece of work. But there's a bunch of folks out there that are from several companies that are having an active conversation about EDI in the Slack. I consider that a bit of a task force, and in fact, that's one of the things I'd like to see as I get back in the saddle here. As some of you know, I was a little bit ill last few weeks, and starting to figure out how to not be ill now. But when I'm in fine form, I try to get people's get people ready for this meeting in advance a little further than I did today. So I'll try to get that set up so that the next call will have a directed conversation about those two issues, EDI and identity. Another one that is on the list is scalability, layer 2, batching, mutexes. I know the maintainer team are interested in this, and this seems like a gap, right? Because we can get into the millions of transactions a month on ETH1 as we stand with no optimizations. I think companies are going to want to see the roadmap, at least, for how we get to tens of millions or hundreds of millions. I know that this is high on the list of things for Karthik Solapuram from E&Y, and I know that he's not on the call today, and I know why. So I can swing back around with him later.
it's not only that if you're scale things up, right? I mean, it's a cost thing. Not only it's a cost thing. It's a throughput thing, but it's also a security thing about censoring transactions, right? Because the Ethereum mempool is the Wild West. I mean, it's like literally a free for all. So that is, if people were to actually understand what that is and what the operating conditions are, they would crap their pants. And that's why, you know.
Do you want me to bleep that out on the YouTube video?
Yeah, you can totally do that.
Hey, did everybody get the little, hey, this is being recorded thing? When I set that up on this one, I thought, just curious.
No,
when they were logging in, did they get a, this is being recorded via sent?
Nope.
Didn't see that.
All right, well, I guess I set it up wrong. Hey, this is being recorded.
Yeah, I have no issue with that, dude.
Wait, is it being recorded? Did I not hit the recording button?
Yes, it is being recorded.
Okay, good. Okay, so scaling is another major item. Let's go down. We're running out of time here, so I want to get to things like POCs and demos. Kyle, I know you've got a couple of interesting ones coming out. What's your time frame on those?
Yeah, not sure. Soon.
That's right. You're actually you've actually successfully gotten like clients, and you have to deliver actual things now.
It's coming. It's coming though. Yeah, I'll have an update on our next call in terms of at least the DocuSign, the DocuLine one, because it's pretty interesting. There's a couple of things that are interesting that could use some community. Could be good things to engage with the community. So let's without committing to anything this week for this call, let's talk about it again next time.
All right. So and with that, we're at the top of the hour. Let me just say a couple of things then, and on this, which is so this was a pretty procedural meeting. I hope everybody's feeling comfortable about that. Please ping me offline if you have any issues. We will get the voting started. We have this week until the end of the close of business Friday, I guess. We have to get everybody vote ready and all the nominations in. Then we have the following week to make sure that we have lots of voters. We have 20. I'd like to have more than 20. Let's say at least 40 voters. So anybody that wants a nomination for the position, and then the last week we will campaign anybody that wants to make the case for why they should be on the TSC. They should do that, and then we'll vote on the very last 4 days of the month. I do have the permission by the TSC to ask for a couple more days, so we might go to October 2nd for the election. That would be a nice clean end of Friday GMT midnight. So I might extend the election by 2 days, just to make it a clean Friday. And the TSC did authorize me to ask for that. So with that, let's make the next SC meeting a really effective one by having everybody who is intending to do work. Let's have that ready to put it on the board. Okay, and Anais, I'm going to defer to tomorrow for the standards work, because you're going to get a whole session for that. And yeah, I think it's time to start getting some of these key things up and into working groups so that we can summarize them on a periodic basis. We really worked hard to get to V01, and here we are. It's usable. It's nice. I'm already starting to see people working with it. And by the way, there are, I think, I don't know exactly how many, but it's not a few sponsors that will be announced very soon. Big companies are coming in fully sponsoring Baseline. And there will be an announcement made by Oasis. I don't have the exact date. So anybody that is considering sponsoring, make sure you get that in there so you can get into that announce. Carol Geyer is the person to talk to. And the other thing is, I am now hearing very big companies coming in with actual demos and projects of their own. So we've seen a lot of scrappy startups. We've seen a lot of early visionaries, all of us getting and doing stuff. I mean, Kyle and Provide and Unibright and all these other folks that are just doing really interesting stuff. LimeChain, Envision, and now from that leadership is we're starting to see big name companies who were a little bit more reticent to put those projects on the board out in public. They're a little more cagey about that, but I am seeing them, and one of them is being reviewed this week. So that's very encouraging. Any last thoughts, words? Okay, got some marching orders. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah, see you guys.